Second hour of the Elias Macko Show. Thank you for joining us. Now, let's begin with this story. 4 Quebecers, including 2 active members of the Canadian Armed Forces, have been arrested for allegedly planning to form an anti-government militia and forcibly seize land near Quebec City. The RCMP says the group was involved in ideologically motivated violent extremism and had been undergoing military-style training while stockpiling weapons, explosives, and tactical gear. One of the accused reportedly used social media to recruit members. The arrests follow a lengthy national security investigation. Let's talk a little bit more about this with Yannick Veilleux-Lepage, an associate professor in the Department of Political Science and Economics at the Royal Military College of Canada. Yannick, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So, how serious was the threat posed by this alleged militia?
We're still, details of the plot itself are a bit scarce, but to put things in perspective, I think it's important to recognize that this is actually the largest seizures of arms related to a terrorism national security case in Canadian history that I'm aware of. The plot itself also appeared to have been quite ambitious. As you mentioned, it related to forming a militia, recruiting other individuals, and then forcibly seizing and holding part of territory outside of Quebec City. So it did seem like it was ambitious, and there was clearly preparation underway in order to enact this plot.
What's the work being done to find movements like this? I mean, it's not lost on me. Apparently, they were using social media for recruitment. That, to me, you do that, someone is going to find this, someone's going to find you, someone's going to report you sooner than later. So, on that aspect here, they were caught. This was shut down. They have been arrested. Seemingly, this is such a big concern, people are looking at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not uncommon for these plots to come to light as a result of social media activities of individuals. Now, generally speaking, the recruitment that takes place on social media platforms are taking place on an encrypted peer-to-peer platform. Things like Telegram is extremely popular within the IMV space, but also things like Rocket Chats and Element. We're not necessarily talking about, the more kind of main street platforms like Twitter or Facebook. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is a place where individuals who have these types of ideas and desires generally have to kind of weigh the importance of operational security for their plots, but also the necessity to recruit more individuals. And luckily, this gives us an opening, gives intelligence services an opening to detect and then disrupt these plots.
What do you think's going on here? That these individuals, they truly believe they can get away with it? Like the thing that goes in my mind is like, wait, they actually thought they'd seize land and they'd be able to keep it and they'd militarize. Like I'm trying to go down the path of what these individuals were thinking. I know you can't be inside someone's head, but Yannick, do you have an idea of what's going on in this ideology where they think they can actually do this stuff and get away with it?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a very long-term project for various right-wing groups, white supremacists, neo-Nazi groups, both in the United States and in Canada. There's been several attempts to create kind of small ethno-national state or territory, either through force or often, as we saw particularly in the early 1980s and early 1990s, simply by purchasing enclaves of land. So really what we're seeing in this plot is really a continuation of a long political project by these groups to create their own ethno-nationalist states where they're able to enforce their vision of society. So it's ambitious, but it's not new.
The connection here, the people being arrested, and the connections to the Canadian Armed Forces, right? Even active mm-hmm. members here. Is this surprising to you? In my mind, well, if you join the Canadian military, you must believe in Canada. And then you hear about this. Tell me about, maybe the Venn diagram of people who are in the Canadian military and people who are who would go down a path of this type of extremism.
Yeah, and I think this is something that is worrying a lot of people. I would say that it's important to take things and put them into perspective. we've got over 60,000 regular force members, and over 20,000 reserve force members, and the absolute vast majority of them serve with integrity, with respect for the rule of law, with a deep commitment to Canadian values. Now, that being said, historically, both in Canada and abroad with several of our NATO partners, we have seen cases where very, very small numbers of individuals enter service and hold undemocratic views. If this is not the first time that we've had such cases in Canada. During COVID, Curry Huron, who was a serving member, ran through the gates of Rideau Hall and attempted to arrest the Prime Minister. We had the case of Patrick Matthews, who joined a neo-Nazi group in the U.S. called The Base and is now serving a lengthy prison sentence there. So these cases do occur, and they occur in Canada and also elsewhere, but they're not the norm. The issue, however, is that there's a potential for disproportionate harm. These individuals may have military training, which they can then leverage on behalf of these groups. But also there's a large reputational harm for these institutions, right? We know that Canadian Armed Forces is a microcosmos of Canadian society. It tries to recruit individuals from different backgrounds. And when a case like this comes out, it really does harm the image of the forces. And I think this is why this story is getting so much attention today.
With Yannick Veilleux-Lepage from the Royal Military College of Canada, let me ask you how we de-radicalize these people. How do we get people to walk back from the most extreme of extremes?
So it's a very difficult question, particularly when we are talking about individuals that are part of the CAF. Really, there's three stages in which intervention can occur. Ideally, these individuals their ideologies are detected prior to joining services, and during the security screening process, they are denied of entrance. Some individuals will radicalize during their times in the ranks, and we've seen this, for example, with the founding members of La Meute. And this is a difficult question because there's essentially two things you can do. You can keep them in the forces and try to engage in de-radicalization processes. And there's a lot of great NGOs in Canada that do this work, or you can get rid of them. But if you get rid of them, essentially all the check and balances, all the scrutiny that comes with being a CAF member now disappears and they become a problem of kind of wider society. And then the third aspect that we see often is individuals might radicalize after their military service. And this is also complicated because this is no longer a CAF question, but rather a question for veteran affair. And we know that in most Western countries, veteran services for veterans are stretched. And a question to be asked is, are we going to put money towards de-radicalizations of former military members, or should that money be attributed to the many other needs of veterans in our country?
Before I let you go, one of the things that you highlighted off the top was the fact that this is the largest weapons seizure ever linked to a terror case in Canada. Was that a failure here, that this group was able to amass so many weapons?
It's hard. We don't quite know how they obtained these weapons yet. One of the charges leads us to believe that at least some of the equipment was military equipment. That doesn't necessarily mean that the firearms were stolen from the Canadian military. That said, we have had cases in Germany, for example, where KSK members, which are the German special forces, have stolen and stockpiled the weapon. I'd say a more likely scenario in this case is that a lot of these weapons were smuggled across the border. They were purchased in the United States and brought in. And if we start looking at it within that framework, then the seizure is large in number, but it's not disproportional. We've seen seizures of firearm, involving firearm trafficking for criminal reasons that have included 200-300 firearms.
Gotcha. Yannick, listen, we have to leave it there. Really informative. Thank you so much for joining our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's Yannick Veilleux-Lepage from the Royal Military College of Canada.